Good evening, and welcome to the reflection of my sermon I just did earlier tonight. It's called Good Friday Sermon, Do Not Grieve, Be Happy. The link should be below. I have a special guest here with me tonight. Special new guest to the videos that I'm going to be doing. Randy Leask. How are you doing tonight, Randy?
Pretty good. How are you, Kirk?
Oh, not too bad. So what we're going to do here is just basically reflect on the sermon and go a little further into detail about some stuff that I did cover.
Well, you covered it.
I covered it well.
You did a very good sermon.
Listen to Randy.
All your sermons are good.
Well, for being a 15-year-old boy and trying my hardest, I think I do a pretty good job.
But I think what we need to reflect on is that Jesus was on this earth as a human, flesh, as you and I are. But he was perfect in that flesh. But in the same respect, we need to reflect on his humility. Like when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane and he was praying to his Father, or our Father, and he did ask him if the cup could pass him, because he knew what he was in store for. He knew what was going to happen. And he was grieving on that. He was, well, put it this way, in a lot of pain. Not just physical pain, but the mental pain that was straining on him too. I mean, it said that he was sweating blood. Now stop and think about that. You know, think of the stress that you would have to be under to sweat blood. You know, another thing that I'd like to think about too is those disciples were sleeping. How could they sleep? You know, obviously they slept because they didn't know what was going on, really.
They didn't know what was going to take place in the nearest future. And why I say nearest is because it was literally minutes within. They were sleeping minutes within the time the soldiers came to get
with
Jesus.
Judas. And we need to reflect back before Garden of Gethsemane when they were preparing for the Passover and doing that's known as the Last Supper, but then it was the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and Jesus was preparing it when he broke the bread and gave of the wine. He knew he was going to be betrayed too, and he said, one among you is going to betray me, you know. And Peter said, I'll never betray you, you know, good old Peter, bold and strong. And then Jesus told him, I tell you the truth, you will betray me 3 times before the cock crows, you know. And it happened. And, you know, you got to think about how Peter felt then. Then back to, where was the part where you said, when the guards came, okay? It's the famous kiss. Judas went to Jesus to let the guards know who Jesus was by kissing him. And that's what is known today as the kiss of death, you know. But Judas did his role. Jesus knew that was his role, you know. And then the fighting went on, and where the priest's ear got cut off. You know, to me, the priest's son's ear got cut off by, was it Peter with the knife, or one of the knives? And then Jesus told Peter, you know, put the knife down. He who lives by the knife shall die by the knife. And he healed his ear. Now, this is the high priest's son. That right there would tell me, oh man, this isn't just a human. This guy just healed me, you know. Yeah. And they took him in. And like Kirk's sermon said, that thus began the long road to the cross. You know, Pontius Pilate saw nothing wrong. No guiltiness in Jesus. He did not want to even crucify him. And again, it was the Passover. It was the big event, and so they always, every year, you know, they can release one prisoner. So he produced the murderer, and everyone said, let the murderer free. You know, Jesus knew this was going to happen. That's why when he was at Gethsemane and he was praying, he did ask the Father, let this cup pass, please. But if not my will, your will be done. And like I was telling Kirk, we need to be like Jesus. We too need to live his will, not our will. And it's tough. You know, it's something so simple, but it's tough. You know,
it is tough. I mean, the human life in itself is hard to live. But to live like Jesus, it's not anything easy. It's not anything you can accomplish overnight.
And Jesus was God immaculate. You know, he was part of the trilogy on earth. And then we go back to the part where he is nailed on the cross, you know, and he says, "Forgive them, Father, for they do not know what they do." You know, he's still humble. He's still servant. He's still asking for our Father to forgive the men that are piercing his hands and piercing his feet. You know, when he gets up on the cross and he's up there and he's telling his mother and the disciple, you know, "This is your mother, this is your son. Take care of each other." You know, he's caring there too. And then the part that really gets me, and it's something that we all really need to reflect on, is the fact that, and this is why Good Friday is not something we grieve on, it's something to be happy for. Because when he was on that cross and he did say, "Father, Father, why have you forsaken me?" God cannot stand sin. God cannot look at sin. And Jesus bore all the sins of the world on him.
Each and every person in the
Exactly.
world.
Everything on the world. And so God did, he wasn't looking at his son, and Jesus knew this, and that had to hurt him too, mentally and physically. You know, Jesus could have walked away from all this easily, but he didn't, because he loved us too much to do so. You know, then when he gave his life away, no one killed him. He laid his life for us. It was written in Isaiah. He will be what is it? Like, he will be wounded for us. He will be nailed on a cross for us. I mean, it was predicted almost 500 years before he was on the cross.
Yeah,
and when he did give up his life, when he said it is finished, what that meant was the sacrifice were done. Everything that reflected to him was finalized then. And then when the storm came and the thunder and the earthquake, and when the curtain over the most holy place of the temple broke and, you know, split in two, that right there was the symbol that Jesus is our high priest. That finished all sacrificial laws. You know, the Ten Commandments are still there. We still have to abide by those 10 Commandments. But because of what Jesus did, we're not under the condemnation of the 10 Commandments, which is something to be, you know, glorified for. I mean, you gotta love Jesus just for that. It's hard to, constantly, you know, I reflect on it a lot. And I personally feel, and I don't know about you, Kurt, but I personally feel that we shouldn't just reflect on this one time of the year.
No.
This should be something that we should reflect on daily, you know, just like we should die daily too. Our flesh should die daily, and we should be in Jesus all the time.
Like Randy just said, basically what he means by that is we need to be in Jesus every day.
Right.
And every day Jesus is in us. And we could do that. If we could do that, give our life to Jesus and let him control it, our life would be better off, right, Randy?
Yes, it would be. And we basically are living sacrifice. We need to always carry a cross. We need to go to the cross all the time, you know. If it wasn't for Good Friday, you know, and it's not something to grieve, really. It truly isn't. You know, it's something that we should be happy for and everything. And the other part that gets me is the guards that was guarding the tomb. You know, when that angel came, when it says in the Bible that it was like thunder and lightning, and it made them like if they were dead, just sombered them down. Now, back in them days, when you were ordered to guard something and they got away, that was death on the guards, you know. And think of that, how Mary felt when the angel came to her and said, "He's not here, he has risen." You know, the stone was rolled away. The cloth that he was wrapped in was still there. You know, like it was just like he just left the cloth. The cloth was still there. No one stole the body, because if they did, they would have stole the whole thing. Yeah. And even so, if they unwrapped them, the wrappings would be all tattered and everywhere, but they weren't. They were right where he was laying.
This was exactly the way he had been laying in the tomb.
Right.
They didn't unfold, they didn't move. He just went through them. It simply just stayed the way it was when Jesus was wrapped in those.
Right. So that right there, tells me, and there's proof in it, that he's alive, people. He has risen. And because of that, he has conquered death for us. All we have to do is believe in him. And when you believe means trust. Do everything that he asks us to do, And sometimes that's hard to do, but we all strive to do it, right?
Yeah.
So
I think our goal out of this sermon should be not to put Jesus aside, but to set time aside for him every day.
Every day. Yep.
And just so you can connect with each other. And so, like bonding time with a friend. Only he's much powerful. He's much more than a friend. He's our Father.
Right.
He's our loving Father. He cares for us.
Our Savior.
He's our Savior.
Right.
He died on the cross for us. Look how much he had to love us.
He gave his life for us. No one killed him.
No one killed him. No.
He laid his own life down for us. He was the unblemished lamb, the ultimate lamb, as John said, when he baptized him.
Multiple people kept saying and going on about, if you are the King of the Jews and have all these powers, why don't you free yourself? Well, it wasn't his will, it was God's will.
Right.
And God's the one who set him to do this. Jesus knew what was going to happen. He knew. And he knew what he would have to do to take away all our sins. And that kind of goes back to God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son.
Yep, goes back to John again, who he loved very much. So, and John was one of the oldest living disciples too, as all the others were martyred, so to speak. So, including Peter, who was crucified upside down.
Yeah,
because he didn't want to be crucified like Jesus.
No, every disciple should be honored too. They walked with Jesus. They learned from him. They're like role models to us in a way.
Right. And we should be disciples also. The word disciple has the word discipline in it. So we need to be disciplined. We need to discipline ourselves to follow Jesus, to drop the things that I don't know what the word I'm looking for, like ourselves, okay? Drop them things and follow Jesus. Be like the fishermen, like Peter and John and them, where they just dropped everything and followed him, went everywhere.
That's kind of like the story, if you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. If you teach a man to fish, he'll eat for a life. And that's another connection within this sermon that people don't see. People overlook the small things, and that's why we're here to tell you about them tonight.
Yep. And
go ahead.
Well, I think you did a really good job on that sermon. I really do.
Thank you. I tried. If you have any questions, please let me know, and then I'll let him know. Then we'll try to respond the best. Have a good night. Thanks for tuning in.
Happy Easter.